send on the other songs.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 594. It's Friday, November 8th, 2013, 3 p.m. Pacific Time. Internet talk radio for your imagination. Mike Matthews broadcasting from the last place on Earth located somewhere in Podcastro Valley, California. Today we hear from Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the engineer, plus the return of the segment Do You Know Dat? Featuring interesting news about what you eat. Mike's Daily Podcast. And lately there's been some strange things going on my street. Mike's Daily Podcast. And one of them was, well, my next door neighbor, they have their car parked out front, and it looks like somebody pulled off a stupid stunt, and they didn't stop at the stop sign that's across the street, and they plowed right into my neighbor's car. That wasn't very neat. It got quite the dent in it. I feel bad for him. Mike's Daily Podcast. And it was a hit-and-run driver. My gosh. How completely uncool is that, my friend? Mike's I think that Daily hit-and-run drivers podcast should be caught. That was my groundbreaking thought for the day. And then my other thing is my neighbor on my other side has a gardener who does nothing. Nothing. He comes over. I hear maybe the weed whacker going a little bit, maybe for 5 seconds, and then the rest of the time, it's leaf blower. Leaf blowers. I hate leaf blowers. They are such a pollutant. I could smell the leaf blower in my house. Like the windows are cold. The windows are closed because it's cold, and I'm still smelling his freaking lawn blower, leaf blower. You know what I mean. If you had a lawn mower, I wouldn't mind so much, but a leaf blower just makes a lot of noise and just kicks up a bunch of dust. And he didn't do anything. He doesn't do anything. Just gives the house a blowout. That's a salon reference for some of you who go to salons, unlike me. But I was married to a salonist. So look who just walked in. Hello, I think it was a Chely Shoehart, the gift shop supervisor. I don't think they're called salonists. No, what are they called? They're called salonistas. Oh, that's nicer. Look who else just walked in. Hello, Mike, this is Floyd the Floorman. And this is John Deere the engineer, Mike. I hate leaf blowers, too. Yeah, they stink, huh? Yeah, right. The only thing worse is a hit-and-run driver. Yes, both of those on my street. Can you believe that? So annoying. Mike, I think you should move. No, I want to say that both my neighbors are actually really cool. My one neighbor who got his car hit by a hit-and-run while his car was just parked there, he didn't deserve that. And the guy who has a gardener that sucks, I mean, he doesn't deserve the gardener, but he's had him forever. I don't know. It's sort of a locked-in, grandfathered-in deal. So whatever. But it just, those were things that pointed out to me, can't stand, thank you. Mike Matthews, I think what you should do is you should go next door and bring some cookies to the guy whose car got totaled. And to the guy who's got a bad gardener, I think you should give him maybe some Rice Krispie treats. That does sound good. So we are talking about food and health today, and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration is beginning a process to ultimately ban the use of artificial trans fat in processed foods, saying the fats are no longer generally recognized as safe for consumption, according to ctvnews.ca. The agency announced yesterday it was taking steps to require the food industry to phase out the use of partially hydrogenated oils, which are the primary source of trans fat in processed foods. Eliminating artificial trans fat would help protect Americans and could prevent as many as 20,000 heart attacks, as well as 7,000 deaths from heart disease each year, according to the FDA. Many food makers have stopped using trans fat containing oil in recent years, but the fat can still be found in microwave popcorn. Dang! I love me some microwave popcorn. It's good sometimes, you know, when you're feeling a little lazy, but you got a little bit of a craving and it's late. It's fun to throw that in and have a little quick buttered popcorn. But it's bad for you. Some margarines also have the trans fat. some frostings, and some coffee creamers. Wow, those are 4 things I like. And soon, that's right, coffee creamers have a lot of that stuff. Oh my gosh, so there goes my coffee creamer days. While consumption of potentially harmful artificial trans fat has declined over the last 2 decades in the U.S., current intake remains a significant public health concern. In its announcement, the FDA also said that they did not specify a timeline as for when it wanted all trans fats out of processed foods, but it said it would collect comments for 2 months before determining how long the phase-out should take. Artificial trans fats were introduced into the food supply in the 70s as a means of extending the life of food products on the shelf. The FDA allowed the use of trans fats, saying they were generally recognized as safe, a legal category that also permits the addition of salt and caffeine into foods. But research in recent years has shown that consuming trans fat raises low-density lipoprotein, or LDL, or bad cholesterol, which increases the risk of heart disease. Mike Matthews, I try to eat the good fat, like the stuff in avocados and fish. Yeah, Mike, we like avocados and fish, too. We eat them all the time. Actually, those 2 things don't really go together, though, avocado and fish.
What about ceviche?
Well, true.
I make a mean ceviche.
Yes, Mike, it's true. His ceviche is actually mean. Okay. Well, I will try to put up with your mean ceviche.
He just acts a little condescending, that's all.
All right, I can put up with that for a short duration. So what do you think about them taking trans fats completely out of our food supply? Do you think that that's just the government overextending themselves? Or do you think it's a great idea and that maybe we'll have less heart attacks and maybe more of us will stick around a little longer to enjoy mean ceviche? You can email me, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. We read your comments on the section emails from email. Also email me there if you'd like to be a guest on the show or if you would like to sponsor the show, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. And we have the website, mikesdailypodcast.com. That's a fine, fine website to go to because it has a blog and a daily podcast picture.
Mike Matthews, I think it's a great thing.
What is?
Podcast pictures.
They are. They're supposed to transport you to another place. Unlike trans fat, they're good for you visually.
Okay, like right now you're overselling the podcast picture.
I am a little bit. But I just want to also mention on the mikesdailypodcast.com, we have links to where to find us on Facebook. And like this show on Facebook so that when we post a new show, you can share that with your friends and more people will find out about Mike's Daily Podcast. We also have at mikesdailypodcast.com a link to where to find us on iTunes, where you can subscribe to us and rate and comment on the show there. There's also links to where to find us on Yelp, Twitter, SoundCloud, Spreaker, YouTube, and we have the Amazon deal of the day is what it's called. And if you click on that and buy something, that's a great way to support the show as well, and you can get something for a tremendous discount there. The Amazon deal of the day, which you can find at mikesdailypodcast.com.
It's Bison Bentley's Do You Know Dat?
Hey, this is Bison Bentley, and Mike Matthews has a couple of stories that'll make you want to ask yourself, do you know that? 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 That is such a good question, Bison. But here are some interesting things that you may not know about, and you might want to ask yourself, do you know that about food? Praying mantis. Those wonderful bugs. Aren't they wonderful? I had a picture on mikesdailypodcast.com of me actually holding a praying mantis that I found in Podcastro Valley, California. They're such interesting creatures. That song, by the way, by Don Dixon, who produced a lot of REM's earlier stuff. But speaking about bugs and praying manti, a London-based startup called Ento wants to squish or quash Westerners' aversion to eating insects. An abundant, sustainable protein, insects are, with less environmental impact than your cows and chickens and pigs. Taking presentational cues from sushi, such as bite-sized pieces in bento boxes, they are trying to make the bug delicacies more attractive. This London-based startup Ento. This according to Wired magazine. Here are some ways and dishes that they've created that people are liking in a recent taste test that they did. One is called a honey caterpillar roll. Fried waxworms with a taste akin to pistachios are flattened like an suyaki tamago, or a thin omelet, which is wrapped around chopped carrots, radish, and cucumber for a light spring roll bite. Then there's the crispy cricket cube. Crickets actually make for a good source of iron, calcium, and vitamin C. In this dish, they're seasoned and baked and are bundled with strips of parsnips and potato. Oh my God, I'm starving. There is the buffalo caterpillar bread cube. It's a mix of powdered buffalo worms or lesser mealworms with flour and yeast. The result is protein-rich bread with a hint of multi-leg nuttiness. Warm herb butter is also a good complement. And finally, there's grasshopper mini pie. This recipe calls for fresh thyme, coriander seed, sea salt, ground pepper, and minced locust. It's salty with a meaty texture.
There's a fungus lurking in the world beneath. Scum.
Fungus! Some of your favorite foods have a deep, dark secret. They're rotting. Chocolate, coffee, fermented. Bread, cheese, sausage, full of fungi and bacteria. Here are 5 microbes that chefs use to make your food and drink more delicious. There is Respergillus dryzae. At the Nordic Food Lab in Copenhagen, Chef Ben Reed is whipping up novel ingredients in the style of soy sauce by adding this fungus with a starter of sunflower seeds, butter beans, mushrooms, barley, quinoa as well. In this, it creates a sauce that tastes just like foie gras. Then there's Lactobacillus San Franciscensis. Linden Street Brewery. I've been there. That's in Oakland near Jack London Square. Well, kind of, it's a little walk, but not that far. In California, made a beer using sourdough starter in which this lactic acid bacteria plays a leading role. Once the culture took, it produced a slightly sour, malty red ale with a balanced bready aroma. Then there's Acetobacter aceti. Charleston, South Carolina, chef Sean Brock creates a truly southern take on vinegar. He adds a mother, which is a slimy mess of symbiotic bacteria and yeast, to Mountain Dew or sweet tea, followed by grain alcohol. Acetobacter eats up the booze, spitting out acetic acid to make a vinegar that plays well in cocktails. Then there's Brettanomyces bruxellensis. Long considered the bane of the brewing world, this yeast, commonly known as Brett, is making a comeback. It's often described as having a funky, fruity smell. In the right hands, though, it lends complex sour notes to all sorts of food. And finally, there's Penicillium nagiovens. At San Francisco's Bar Tartine, Chef Courtney Burns dries her sausages and cured fish roe in a fridge that's been sprayed with a fungal mix, headlined by this mold. Though it doesn't ferment the roe, the mold coats it, adding a meaty aroma. Yeah, salt. Excessive salt consumption was linked to 2.3 million deaths worldwide in 2010. Although fake salts are nothing new, products like New Salt, Also Salt, and No Salt have been on the market for years. The technology being used by New Tech Salt, and that's tech as in T-E-K, is new. Traditionally, salt replacement manufacturers have removed the sodium chloride, replaced it with potassium chloride, and used expensive flavor enhancers to mask the bitter metallic taste of the substitute mineral. But new tech developed another process which marries the potassium chloride within a single crystal with an organic acid that blocks its bitterness. The result is a seasoning with as much as 50% less sodium than regular salt, but it has all the saltiness. Since the Minnesota-based company started selling its potassium chloride to the food industry 3 years ago, it has developed a network spanning 6 continents and more than 40 countries. Earlier this year, Bill Gates even endorsed it on his blog.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore.
Ah, pizza. And do you know that from the perspective of a food marketer, the problem with pizza has always been the crust, the part of the product that lots of buyers throw away. Nearly 20 years ago, Pizza Hut answered that challenge with the stuffed crust pizza, which, according to the company, added some $300 million to total sales. Since then, Pizza Hut has experimented with all manner of other crust enhancements. Now, last spring, they saw the release of the crazy cheesy crust pizza, with pockets of cheese that turn the crust into a decadent, detachable appetizer. The pie took about a year to develop, with most of the work going into the blend of cheeses. After trying out 50-plus variations, Pizza Hut chose a combination of 5 pizzas because, quote, once we went below that number, we lost the wow. The research and development team then tested the color, texture, and the ooey gooey. That would be the ooey gooey stretch on 1,280 slices. The company even performed driver simulations, carrying the completed pizza over railroad tracks, back roads, and busy streets to ensure that it would still be good when it arrived. Sadly, none of that pizza ever arrived at my house. Where the hell were they going with the pizza? Bring it to me. Dang it. Oh, well, I don't need the carbs. As we go outside the last place on earth where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcaster Valley, California, and I don't need the trans fats. Which soon there won't be any trans fats in anything. Yay.
And here's today's podcast picture.
And the picture is a drawing, which you can find at mikesdailypodcast.com, with John Deere the engineer.
Yes, Mike, we discuss lunch.
Yes, we discussed lunch and about how certain lunches, like, for example, eating pizza for lunch, creates like a food coma, and it makes it very difficult to do anything the rest of the day. Your brain isn't firing correctly. You want to take a nap. It slows you down. You become lethargic, that kind of thing.
Yes, Mike, all that fun stuff. And all the trans fats you eat doesn't help either.
Yeah, I should stay away from the coffee creamer and the microwavable popcorn, which, by the way, both of those things found at most radio stations, because the DJs, they can't leave because they're on the air, and so they have the microwavable popcorn to eat, and then there's the coffee creamer in there, so they're getting all loaded with trans fats. And if you've seen any DJs lately that work in radio, that totally makes sense. That's why so many of them get lap band surgery, or they get the, what do they call it, Herbalife or whatever that system is to try and get them to lose weight. And then they talk about it on the air, and they go, I've lost 30 pounds. Of course, you can't check it because all you're hearing is their voice. You don't get to see them. And what pictures they do show are of them, like, photoshopped or from 30 years ago. These are, I'm pulling the curtain back here, the world of radio, and you can see what it's like. But till then, let's just talk about food coma and after lunch blues and doldrums. You can read that cartoon at mikesdailypodcast.com.
Mike Matthew, I know what would wake you up if you had, like, the after-lunch doldrums.
What?
A leaf blower right in the face.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Or somebody sideswiping your car and hitting and running. Mike Matthew.
Excellent suggestions. Tomorrow, we will bring you the segment, it is the finale of the FM project, the part 3. And it'll be the last one you'll hear for a while, I promise. Plus, we'll hear from Benita, the disgruntled fiddle player, and the brewmaster. Boy, did I sell that so well. Mike, I think you should move. I'm thinking I'll stay. I'll stay here. John Deere, what do you think?
I think you should move, and move to the rhythm.
There is no rhythm. We're outside. There's no music. Just the sound of that dog barking and the birds chirping.
You need to pump up the jam, pump it up while your feet are stomping.
That's right, John Deere, because it's Friday! What? I didn't hear you.
It's Friday!
Okay, that time I heard you.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!